I never liked driving alone at night. The darkness seemed to amplify every creak and moan of my car, and the solitude felt suffocating. But on that particular night, I found myself behind the wheel, journeying down a lonely stretch of highway. I had attended a late-night gathering with friends and was now headed back home. Little did I know that this seemingly ordinary drive would become a nightmarish ordeal that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The clock struck midnight as I merged onto the desolate highway. The radio played softly in the background, a futile attempt to drown out the oppressive silence that enveloped me. The dim glow of the dashboard lights was my only companion, and I clutched the steering wheel tightly, my nerves on edge. As I drove, the trees lining the road cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance in the dim light. The occasional flickering of street lamps provided a brief respite from the darkness, but it did little to ease the sense of unease creeping up my spine. Suddenly the radio signal weakened, and static filled the car. I fiddled with the knobs, trying to regain the music, but all I got was a faint, unsettling hiss. A chill crawled up my arms, and I glanced around, half expecting to see a specter lurking in the back seat. Shaking off my irrational fears, I focused on the road ahead. The yellow lines blurred together, hypnotizing me, and my eyelids felt heavy. I knew I had to stay awake, but the monotony of the road tempted me to surrender to drowsiness. Then, from the darkness, a voice pierced through the silence. "Stay awake, my friend," it whispered, sending shivers down my spine. My heart pounded as I jerked upright in my seat. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. No response. The voice had vanished, leaving me even more on edge. My eyes darted around, but I saw no one. I chided myself for letting my imagination run wild and focused on driving, trying to push the encounter to the back of my mind. As I continued down the winding road, an unsettling sensation settled over me. It felt as though I was being watched, as if invisible eyes were scrutinizing my every move. I shook my head, trying to rid myself of the paranoia, but it clung to me like a ghostly presence. Just when I thought the night couldn't get any stranger, I spotted an old gas station up ahead. A glimmer of relief washed over me. Perhaps a brief stop would help shake off the creeping fear. I pulled into the station, and my headlights illuminated a scene straight out of a horror movie. The gas station was a decaying relic, abandoned and forgotten by time. Its paint had faded, and the windows were boarded up, giving it an eerie appearance. My heart pounded in my chest, urging me to leave, but my rational mind prevailed. I needed to refuel, and it was the only sign of civilization for miles. I stepped out of the car, and the cold night air bit at my skin. My footsteps echoed eerily as I approached the ancient pump. The wind rustled the overgrown bushes nearby, creating an ominous symphony of sound. Just as I reached for the pump handle, the whispering voice returned. "Leave this place," it urged, the words carried by the wind. Startled, I turned around to see if anyone was there. But the gas station stood empty and desolate, and there was no sign of another living soul. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a primal urge to flee. I decided to heed the warning and get back into my car, but as I turned the key, the engine refused to start. Panic surged within me as I tried again and again, but my car remained motionless. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a tall, thin man with a tattered coat and a wide-brimmed hat. His face was obscured by darkness, and my heart sank as I realized he was the source of the haunting voice. "Having car troubles?" he called out, his voice carrying an unsettling cadence. "Yes," I replied, my voice trembling. "Do you know how to fix it?" The man approached, and a cold breeze seemed to follow in his wake. "Let me take a look," he said, reaching for the hood of my car. I hesitated but felt a strange compulsion to trust him. As he inspected the engine, his dark eyes met mine, and a sense of dread washed over me. I wanted to leave, to run from this sinister stranger, but fear rooted me to my seat. "It's a simple fix," he said with a sinister smile. "I can give you a lift if you'd like." Relief washed over me at the thought of escaping this forsaken place. I reluctantly agreed, and the man slid into the driver's seat. His presence was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a terrible mistake. As we drove, the man began to tell me a haunting tale about the very highway we were on. He spoke of a tragic accident that occurred years ago, claiming the lives of several people. Since then, there have been rumors of restless spirits that roamed the road, searching for lost souls to join them. I listened, my heart pounding, as he described sightings of ghostly figures and strange occurrences along the highway. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I tried to convince myself that it was all just a creepy story meant to scare me. But as the miles passed, I began to notice strange things outside the car. Shadows seemed to dance along the roadside, and faint whispers brushed against my ears. The man's story had become a living nightmare, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. "Can we stop somewhere?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I need to use the restroom." The man obliged and pulled over at a rest area. As I stepped out of the car, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The moonless night enveloped me in darkness, and I couldn't see anything beyond the faint glow of the car's taillights. I hurried into the dimly lit restroom, my heart pounding in my chest. Every creak and rustle seemed magnified, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I splashed water on my face, trying to regain my composure, but the unease lingered like a dark cloud. As I stepped back outside, the man was nowhere to be seen. Panic seized me as I called out his name, but there was no response. The highway lay deserted, and the darkness seemed to swallow me whole. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Had the man abandoned me? Was he a mere figment of my imagination? Or had he been a ghost, a spectral hitchhiker with an eerie tale to tell? I knew I couldn't stay at the rest area forever, so I mustered my courage and got back into the car. As I drove, the feeling of being watched intensified, and I couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were fixed on me. The road stretched on endlessly, and I felt as if I had entered a realm beyond reality. The highway had become a nightmarish labyrinth, trapping me in a web of terror. Suddenly a figure appeared in my rearview mirror, and my heart skipped a beat. It was the man, the one who had given me a lift. But something was horribly wrong. His face was pale, and his eyes were hollow, devoid of life. I blinked, and he vanished, leaving me in a state of disbelief. The highway seemed to warp around me, and I felt as if I had entered another dimension, a realm of restless spirits and malevolent entities. The radio crackled to life, and a haunting melody filled the car. It was a mournful tune, sung by voices from beyond the grave. The lyrics told of lost souls and eternal sorrow, and I couldn't tear my gaze away from the road ahead. As I drove on, I encountered more apparitions, each one more terrifying than the last. Their hollow eyes bore into my soul, and their wailing voices echoed in my mind. I tried to escape, to find an exit from this nightmarish highway, but there was no way out. The road seemed to stretch on forever, a never-ending purgatory of fear and despair. Finally, I saw a glimmer of light in the distance. It was the first sign of civilization I had seen in what felt like an eternity. As I drew closer, I realized it was a gas station, just like the one where my nightmarish journey had begun. With a surge of hope, I pulled into the gas station, praying that this was my chance to escape. But as I stepped out of the car, I felt a chilling presence behind me. I turned around to see the pale figure of the man, his haunting smile etched into my memory. "You can't escape," he whispered, his voice a sinister echo. "You're stuck here, just like the rest of us." Terror washed over me as I realized the truth. I had stumbled upon a cursed stretch of highway, a limbo for lost souls, and I had become its latest victim. In that moment, I knew there was no escape, no way to break free from the clutches of the haunting highway. I was trapped in this eternal night, destined to wander the dark road for all eternity, forever haunted by the whispers of the wraiths that roamed the night. And so, dear reader, if you ever find yourself on a desolate highway at the stroke of midnight, beware the haunting highway, for it is a road to darkness and despair, where lost souls wander and wraiths whisper your name.